I am Melissa Martinez, Admissions Officer for the El Paso Independent School District. I'm going to, we do have Spanish interpretation, as I mentioned, available, and I'm going to ask our interpreters to help you with that connection. Hija. Si necesitan interpretación en español, aquí van a oprimir en este lugar el globo que dice interpretation y pueden seleccionar español, así para que escuchen la presentación en español. También aquí estamos disponibles si tienen alguna pregunta. We do have ASL interpreters, so you can pin those if you need those. I am going to ask a favor of everyone joining us today. We do have over 200 participants, so if I could ask everyone except our presenters and our ASL interpreters to turn their video off, it will help us keep everyone, keep track of our ASL interpreters. And then when we get to the question and answer portion, if you have a question, please reveal your video, and that's how I will know that you have a question to ask again, because we do have over 200 people. It will just help me keep everyone, keep track of everyone. Before we get started, I'm going to introduce our presenters for today. We have Dr. Carla Gonzalez, who's the Associate Superintendent for School Leadership and Academics, Scott Gray, who is Director in Academics, Elena Bejarano, who's our Assistant Director in Health Services, and Daniel Vasquez is our Fund Development and Partnership Specialist. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Just so everyone's aware, we are recording this session today. It's being recorded. So, with that, I'm going to my presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Scott Gray. And we will have questions at the end of the session, so if you have any questions, just hold those to the end. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you. Welcome, thank you for being here, everyone. Go to the next slide here. So return to face-to-face instruction. The Texas legislature did not approve funding of remote instruction for the 2021-2022 school year. The Texas Education Agency has not approved nor provided any waivers for remote instruction. EPISD will provide in-person instruction for all students this school year. All students will return to campuses for in-person learning 5 days a week. Extracurricular activities have resumed: UIL, fine arts, band, athletics. PE, recess resume, cafeterias are reopened.
Accelerated learning is a term that you're going to hear a great deal of this year. And what accelerated learning means is that we actually, even though our students have been away from us in many cases, very much of a virtual or a hybrid session for the last year and a half, we still want them to come back in and continue at the grade level that they're entering into. So accelerated learning means that we're continuing at the grade level that our students will be entering in just a few weeks, 3 weeks to be exact. But what we're going to do is provide that support for those, any kind of learning loss or gaps in the instruction. House Bill 4545 just came through the legislative session from Austin within the last few weeks. And basically it outlines for us how to provide supports for those students who definitely showed that they struggled, specifically on the STAR exams in the spring. And STAR are grades 3 through 12. Our high schoolers take STAR EOCs, the end of course for graduation. So any student who did not pass the spring STAR, they will have some special requirements that we will be providing additional supports for them as we move through this accelerated learning for this next school year and for the coming school years to get everybody back where they need to be. Next slide. This goes into a little bit more. Typically grades 5 and 8 were grades that they had to pass the STAR exam in order to be promoted into middle or to high school. That has been eliminated. No longer will students be retained in 5th or 8th grade simply because of their performance on a STAR exam. The requirement for students who did not pass the STAR in 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 8th grade There are going to be new requirements to provide additional support to them in the areas of the STAR that they did not meet that mastery. Those 3rd, 5th, and 8th graders are currently going to be our 4th, 6th, and 9th graders. So the support will be provided to them in those grades, 4th, 6th, and 9th, meaning the 5th graders will receive the support in their middle schools, and those 8th graders are now freshmen. The supports will be provided through their high schools. These are some of the guidelines from House Bill 4545. If students did not pass the STAR, the elementary and the middle school, they can either be assigned to a teacher who's a certified master, exemplar, or recognized teacher. That's defined as nationally board certified teachers. Our district has very few of those. So really most of our students, the vast majority of our students, will be receiving supplemental instruction tutoring, is what we know it as, before or after school, or even embedded in the school day. And we're working on schedules to provide that extra time, that extra support with our students who qualify for this. The next slide. Accelerated learning. This gets a little bit more into the nitty-gritty. Students who did not take or did not pass the STAR test in 2021, meaning the spring, they will be required to do the following. They will have no less than 30 tutoring hours total during the summer, beginning really now in August, all the way through summer of 2022. What we will be going for is, we're trying for more than an hour a week, simply because 30 hours per subject. Some of our students, even though we're going to start focusing on math and reading, some of them also had tests in social studies and science. So for some students, that could be 120 supplemental hours. We will have special materials and programs designed for the students, so it's very targeted for the areas that they show that they need still some time to work and perfect. This is one of the greatest challenges of all, is that the instruction will be either one-to-one or a group no larger than 3 students, meaning a ratio of 3 students with 1 tutor or teacher in order to receive this supplemental instruction. And again, we'll be training our teachers, we'll be hiring tutors, substitutes, anyone who works with the students to support this one-on-one or 3-to-1 instruction. They will definitely have special training and specific programming activities that are designed for the children, not just a one-size-fits-all. These are very individualized. Our students will have personal pathways, whether it's the reading, the math, the social studies, or the science. Next slide.
So we know that
Mr. Gray take this next one.
we know that our adults and our students are coming back with different experiences from the past year and a half, and so we want to put social and emotional well-being on top. So we've designed a system and a process to ensure that we're conducting daily wellness check-ins with our counselors. Counselors will use a standard electronic template and upload that to principals weekly. And after all that data is captured, we're going to make sure that we're assessing student concerns, needs, and identifying next steps to address them and to stay connected with our students. EPISD will continue to focus on social and emotional learning. Social emotional learning has been in our district for a while now, and it's going to be important to come back to this piece, because we want to make sure that we're managing emotions, positive goals, showing empathy, making responsible decisions, and then continue to embed that within our curriculum as we move forward through this new school year for everyone. Ms. Bejarano will be next.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. So some quick health protocols. We're going to be continuing the self-checks and the self-monitoring. They're strongly recommended for parents and staff to do at home. If they're ill, we're requiring them to stay at home until they feel better. Check in with your school nurse. They'll have all the information for you. Masks are no longer required, but you're more than welcome to do so for your student. Physical distancing is not required. We'll leave some personal space for students. There's no distance that will be mandated. Disinfection practices will continue just like they do during a regular school year. Water fountains, any heavy use equipment, high touch areas, we're going to disinfect daily. Contact tracing is going to be continuing for COVID-19 exposures. If a student is able to be vaccinated, that will be the time we'll be asking. And if they're vaccinated and no symptoms, they won't need to quarantine. If they're a younger student that cannot get a vaccine and they've been exposed or they themselves are positive, we'll go through the quarantine protocol. You'll get a notice home. 10-day is not in effect for anyone who's vaccinated that does not have symptoms. Hand sanitizer and disinfection supplies will be provided at all the campuses. Those are readily available now. The temperature checks we're doing in the nurse's office per standard protocol, they won't be lining up every morning for a regular temperature check. If your student has a temperature, please keep them at home.
Thank you. As you can see, that's a brief overview of what return to school will look like, with some of the instructional requirements that we'll have, and then of course some of the changes in health protocols, change it from when students were fully last on campus, but some kind of a moderation of what has been done this past school year. So at this time, we are open to any questions that you might have. If you have a question, if you'll please reveal your video and I can unmute you. And as noted in that last slide, we will be posting the full plan. That's a more detailed plan will be posted on our website at episd.org. So I see our questions popping up. So I'm going to go ahead and start unmuting you one at a time. So I'm going to start with Jessica. All right, Jessica.
Hi there. Hi. I do have a question. When you say sanitizing supplies, so disinfection, the hand sanitizers, that's fine, but do you know which sanitizers you're using, and can we be sure that they're safe for use around children? I ask because some of them are not safe for use around children. They're not safe, like the main ingredient in Clorox wipes, the quaternary ammonium salts. Those have actually been banned in California for use in schools and around children. But I'm still seeing that they're asking for the school supply lists have those listed, Lysol wipes and Clorox wipes. So I'm wondering if there's any kind of awareness or what's going on with the disinfection.
I definitely want to answer that for you. And I think Amanda Burns, who's in charge of that, can also maybe weigh in, or we can get that information to you all. I know that everything we use has to have the MSDS sheet and is COVID approved for fighting COVID-19, which is a virus. I will look into the wipes. I know there's been some issues in the California schools. So we'll double check on those issues, make sure everything's safe. We're following protocol for those disinfectants. It's a good question.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to mention, so I'm at Texas Tech. I'm a researcher at Texas Tech, and I'm the environmental toxicology specialist. And I have every other week on Wednesdays, we're starting an ECHO project, which is like a community learning to get to the community health workers to get the word out about safer disinfection practices. If there's somebody who I can forward this information to, somebody who's like in charge of facilities, like that, maybe that'd be great if they can also attend and then pass the word out, because there are safer alternatives that aren't causing, this kind of hormone disruption to children and affecting fertility, all sorts of side effects that are just not good.
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda Burns, you can look up her email online. And
can you spell her last name?
Miss Jessica, if you hang out with me for a little bit afterwards, I'll give you my email. You can send it to me and I'll make sure it gets in her hands.
Wonderful, thank you.
Now with me a little bit after I dismiss everyone, I'll give you my email. Okay, I'm just gonna
great.
As I see everybody. Did you have any other questions? Ms. Jessica?
I don't, thank you.
All right, next is Heather Lewis.
Hello. I was wondering, most of the interventions that were addressed were related to students of STAR age. What is the plan for kinder and first grade students and second grade?
All of our students at the beginning of the year are going to have diagnostics, even our youngest. And we have the DRA exam as well as dual language assessments, mostly in reading readiness. And again, it helps provide that information for us in terms of where they are. And that way we can design what our next steps are. Again, the personal pathways that a lot of these diagnostics provide to our teachers to assist the students are incredibly beneficial. So all of our students, as we welcome them back, as Mr. Gray said, we want them to sort of acclimate back to the instructional setting, being away from home, being back in the learning environment. But we also, the first week or two, a diagnostic for all of our students from our pre-Ks all the way through seniors, just to be able to determine exactly where everybody is so that we can provide the best supports possible. But we do have diagnostics even leading up to grade 3. Those third graders now were second graders last year, so we don't have the STAR data for them, but we do have other assessments.
Okay, next will be Ms. Villegas.
I have two questions. One of them is that the way I see it, that the last time that that the plan was designed, it was more in theory instead of practice. We saw that it was critical to have the staff. I spoke to the principal, and all those positions that were assigned to to do some COVID intervention and to develop the plans were basically the principal and the vice principal. But then we didn't have any additional staff to carry on the plan. That's one of our biggest concern is just about designing certain positions and certain processes, but is there also will the district hire additional staff for schools to implement those programs and those safety procedures? And I think the other thing is the oversight. We're very much concerned of the oversight and how parents can, the grievance process to bring forward complaints of COVID and recuperating the education. The traditional grievance process does not work for the parents. And I really don't have any, in terms of our principal and the leadership in our schools, I don't feel that they're doing enough to really address the concerns of the parents. So with these type of issues and dealing with federal dollars, would there be like an external process that allows parents to complain and so that things are addressed accordingly, and more specifically, like if it needs like immediate attention and not be sent through that long process of dealing with the district's grievance process?
I'm going to ask Mr. Vasquez to answer that question on the protocols that you have put in place to monitor the programs and the data that you'll be keeping related to programs that are funded by the ESSER funds.
So as it relates to ESSER, there will be oversight and compliance for any program or any implementation that takes place via ESSER. So whatever those programs are that get implemented, we will have an evaluation process to make sure that we're aligning and following what we prescribe to do. I think your bigger question, though, about grievance as it relates to COVID falls outside of that scope. And it probably needs to be addressed at the district level by somebody outside of the ESSER planning strategy.
Dr. Gonzalez, can you address that, please?
I'm not aware of anything that's additional to what we do have in-house for our parent complaint and grievance forms, or through working through the legal channels. I'm not aware of anything. House Bill 4545 does have, if parents want to request a larger group setting or they want to decline the additional services, but I'm not familiar that there's any other new type of grievance procedure if you felt like we haven't met the needs based on COVID, either whether it's the safety protocols or it's addressing the learning loss issues. All I'm familiar with at this point is just what you've referred to is those processes for filing that parent complaint and grievance process that goes through the district levels as you outlined. So I'm not familiar with anything new that's been brought forward or anything that the state has implemented to provide another avenue for concerns to be raised or processed outside the district protocols or procedures.
The community always has a direct avenue, of course, of reaching out to their trustees or bringing complaints directly to the district. We have several portals on our website where you can submit concerns or questions, and they are directed to the appropriate department. And of course, you'll always have the avenue of also reaching out to your elected officials. Next will be Elizabeth Aguirre.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Aguirre.
Yes, good afternoon. I have a little issue with one of the coordinators of the reading plan for first grade at Clardy Elementary School. I asked my teachers, my daughter's teacher, sorry, to if she will be able to help my little girl with reading because she was on the baby, she's in the level of beginning. And then because they were giving tutoring to the kids, but they were like a certain group of kids. So she told me that that the service can be provided, but it was, first of all, it was too late of the school year. It was like around 6 weeks before the school year ended. And besides that, she told me that the coordinator of the reading program at Clardy for first graders told the teachers that the tutoring should be offered to the high reading levels kids, and the low reading level kids should be using the Lexia app. And to me, it was like what you're talking about. My daughter needs more help from the teacher than from an application. So I did talk to the assistant principal, and the assistant principal called me and everything, and then we're going to investigate. I couldn't talk to the principal yet, but when the school year begins, I'm going to talk to her, because to me, it's like when she told me that, I feel like she was telling me, like, you know what, the application is more better for your daughter to read, that if the teacher sit down with her and give her that time of reading and to teach her reading.
If you,
and I do complain of that because I don't like that.
yes, Ms.
Because
sorry, with me at the end. I can, let me get your name and number so we can address your personal concern. So if don't hang up at the end, if you'll hang out with me, I want to get your name and number so that I can call the principal on that matter for you.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll follow up as well. Melissa and Ms. Aguirre, I'll have Dr. Garcia work with you and the school and find out what other supports we can put in place for your daughter. I believe she'd be starting second grade then next year?
No, she's still in first grade.
First grader. Okay.
She's
all right.
First grade, and to be honest, I think every child is different, and I think every child learns differently.
Yes.
That's my concern.
Yes, ma'am. If you can hang up, like I said, don't hang up at the end so I can get your phone number.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Xochitl Rodriguez.
Hi, thank you. I'm wondering, I of course understand that there's not an exception for children who are at higher risk due to health concerns. I can foresee, right, I've played it out in my head, I can foresee that my daughter would not need to remove her mask during any instructional time at all whatsoever. But of course, there's a major concern for lunch hours where not only does she have no choice but to sit shoulder to shoulder with other children, she also has no choice but to remove her mask. Has the district considered allowing some exception for that lunch hour so children can eat outside more safely when they are at higher risk of complications due to COVID exposure?
What I would recommend, Ms. Rodriguez, is to reach out to your campus. And again, like Ms. Martinez said, if I can get your information, I can help coordinate that. What this sounds like is because it's a health concern, that it might be something that could fall under a 504 accommodation for her in order to provide a smaller environment where she could, be able to eat and be in a less crowded environment. I mean, we'd want something outside is wonderful, but weather permitting. But this is something definitely I think that we can work with you on the campus level to provide that accommodation to support you and her so that she's comfortable and can still enjoy, that break from the classroom and be able to eat. That is always a concern. Eating and the mask coming off, we know that that is a risk of exposure at that time. So again, if you'll also sort of stay with us at the end, in that way we can get your information and we can get something set up with the campus for you.
Okay, if there's a chat, would you all be able to plop your emails into that chat? I think that would be helpful for everyone in the call.
I will do that for everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, next will be Marcelo.
Hi, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to change my son's name from the Zoom. My name is Catherine Garcia. I have a question and concern. I realize that the Governor Abbott's ban on masks, I mean, really, I think from my understanding, primarily did that, just, took away the ability to require masks in the school setting. I'm just curious as to why the district seemed to drop all other measures such as social distancing and the barriers that were put in place, like the clear barriers and the social distancing markers and so forth, to help kind of further institute those safe practices. It just seems like as if everything went to normal just because that mask ban went into place. And that's kind of a big concern of mine because I do have a high-risk child. And so I'm at a loss at this time. I feel like we are left with no other choice other than homeschooling, perhaps. And that's something that I think is unfortunately unfair. And I know some things are out of your all's control, but I feel the things that you do have in control, it just seems as if everything was kind of dropped. And I'm curious as to why.
Speak to some of that. It's not so much the mask mandate, but the fact that there's no virtual option, that we do have to have everyone back in the schools, that there is an ability to space out. They're absolutely going to do it. The barriers can be provided if needed. Many of the teachers, staff in the front may still use those barriers. It's more of the fact that everybody's returning to the normal environment, full fold, and there's spacing is more difficult when everyone's back in class. So mask, you always have an option as a parent to have that student wear that. Nobody can tell them not to wear it. So that's definitely an option. We can look at the 504 options for anyone who needs accommodations medically that may be more fragile. So we can definitely do that. I will say we're going to do our very best disinfecting, spacing, monitoring, COVID tracing. We're going to do everything we absolutely can to make sure of the health and wellness of the students. But that mandate to not have a virtual option has caused that spacing to be an issue.
Yes, I'd add to that. Yes, unfortunately, some of the mandates that the state and the Texas Education Agency gave to school districts led to these other changes as well. As while we had the option and some students were home and some we had the ability to space more students when we only had maybe half of the class size in. Now that everybody will be back, and as Ms. Bejarano mentioned, where we have the space, we will continue to physically distance. But unfortunately, this Texas Education Agency lifted a lot of these previous protocols, and we have to comply with them, including the number one, 100% face-to-face, which again leads to the challenges of getting back to somewhat regular practices as before. But continuing with the things that we can monitor as disinfecting, we can, but unfortunately we cannot ask anyone to wear a mask. That is, again, that would be against the state mandate. Yes, ma'am, did you have a follow-up question? Go ahead. Oh, let me unmute you. Go ahead.
I just was, thank you. So I just have a question as far as those, I mean, the choices as far as, for example, the kids that are in elementary school that are too young to get vaccinated at this time. Then an option, for example, if you were to have no virtual option, would be behoove me, for example, because my daughter's very high risk, to do the option of maybe homeschooling until they get vaccinated and then re-enrolling in school. I guess I'm just kind of at a loss. I don't know what other options. I know there was some talk about possibly having some pods of high-risk students, if they have a medical letter, that there may be able to be a virtual option, even though it's not necessarily funding for all virtual. There's absolutely no options for any accommodations for special needs children that have high risk.
The only thing I can really recommend, and this again is something that we need your information to have your school reach out to you. We do have something called homebound services, and those are for students who have medical situations that prohibit them from being able to attend in person. And then we provide the instruction directly to them. They come to the home, for a few hours every week and work with one-on-one with the students. That there is an avenue for that. and it may be something to look at, just as another option, is to go ahead and look into see if of qualifying for homebound. There is, physicians need to sort of weigh in and make the recommendation as well. Generally for homebound, it's a minimum of approximately 6 weeks, if not longer. We have students on homebound for a variety of different reasons, some long-term, some shorter. So that may be a way to be able to stay active within the district and continue to get district services and district instruction, actually that come to your home. Homebound teachers actually arrive on site to work with the students individually.
Okay, next will be Raquel. Raquel, do you have a question?
Yeah, so there's not going to be any, it's my understanding that there's not going to be any virtual classes offered for kinder, first and second grade?
No, the state is not providing us any support to be able to offer virtual instruction at all. They are basically what they passed in the legislation session this summer was that we must return 100%. They will not provide any support to districts providing any type of virtual instruction for any age groups.
Okay, and the same is going to happen with the mask, as I heard, and I guess the temperatures as well. So who's going to be at risk if my kid comes to my home where my mom lives and she gets infected and dies, and something happens to my kids either? I mean, who's going to be at fault? And the Delta variant is also going to affect kids. Our kids are not going to be vaccinated because I don't like what it's on the vaccines. So even if they get to the age where they need to be vaccinated, they're not going to. So who is going to be at fault? Because my kids have to be in school.
And that's not something we can answer. Like we stated, this is a mandate from the state. So I encourage you to reach out to your state legislatures to address your concerns, because unfortunately our hands are tied. They have not allowed us to provide virtual instruction. So the only option we can offer our students is in-person, face-to-face, with the exception of the accommodations that Dr. Gonzalez has mentioned. So we share your concerns. Unfortunately, our hands are tied.
Do you have a list of the legislators to contact with?
If you go to the state legislature webpage, you can look up El Paso's there, or again, if you want to give me your email, I can send you all of our state legislatures' emails.
Okay. Yes, please.
I'm going to move on to Linda Lang.
I'm obviously not Linda.
Go ahead, sir.
My question involves the tutoring aspect, I guess specifically with high schools. I assume that each high school is going to develop its own plan of how and when they're going to offer the accelerated services for students who may not have passed one or more of the STAR tests. Any idea when the schools will be reaching out on that, or should we just make contact with a particular school? And also, will that affect participation in things like major sports? Or
it won't affect a student being eligible for major sports, but it may, I will be honest with you, as we're trying to find time within the school day. The high schools are the most difficult to be able to do the embedded supports, because we do have hour requirements for our CTE courses. I do know some are going to create sort of at least an advisory type schedule one day a week so that everybody will have some time to do that. We're going to be meeting this week as high schools to look and share some best practices and ideas. But in terms of major sports, many of our schools, we double block major sports. And so that second blocking may be the time that we pull a student to do some of the, 30 minutes of the support. The problem is what wasn't on there. There's a lot more details on this. We can't pull from core classes we can't pull from PE, and we can't pull from enrichment. So that would be all 8 classes that a high schooler is taking. So we do have to get creative and create some time within the day. But when we have a double block period like that major sport, quite often we double block algebra. We'll be able to do that second period. We might be able to pull from that. We might also, for some students who can afford it in their schedule, give them sort of that accelerated learning time, which is, time that they can work with the teachers in that small group, and just make it part of their schedule. We hope not to do that. We know most of our kids, they want every class that they're enrolled in. They don't want to lose out on band or major sports. We can offer 0 9th period. We also know we can do, ironically enough, in the evenings, we will provide virtual accelerated learning at all levels. So teachers who are willing to do that Zoom with a small group, they'll be able to provide that so students can work outside the school day. It's just that it does require us to offer an option in the day, but we can also work outside of that as well. Plus, we do have the intersessions. We have a week, all grade levels in October, and then the week prior to spring break. We will be using those intersessions and providing 30-hour blocks of time for a student to come during intersession and just get their reading 30 hours or their math. So the schools will be reaching out. If you know your child struggled on one of the exams in the spring, they will reach out to you to let you know what the options are and how many hours that we'll be providing for them. Also, something I didn't mention, for those, and we had a lot of students who didn't test at all in the spring, we will need to test those students in August. The state is providing a beginning of the year TEA designed exam. And so, for example, if you have a true 9th grader, in the end of August, when they release those beginning of the years, they'll take their 8th grade assessments. And that way we'll determine which hours need to be provided, hopefully. As we prep the students throughout August, they'll do very well on that beginning of the year assessment, which mimics the STAR or the EOC, and they will pass and not need to take the hours. The hours will be there to help any student prepare, but those that are required will also have that information. So what will happen is a student who took the exam in the spring and was unsuccessful, they will have the hours provided to them. Then the students who take the beginning of the year TEA exam at the end of August, if they're successful, they don't need to have the hours assigned. If they're unsuccessful, they too then will fall into the group that will have those supplemental accelerated learning hours provided to them. I hope that helps. That was a lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was, and it was good information. Thank you. Makes me glad we took our grandson in to make sure he took those tests.
Yes.
But then the schools should be reaching out, probably not before the beginning of the year. I'm assuming you have a lot of options to discuss then, right?
We do, and all of our students will be taking just sort of diagnostics, which are shorter. A diagnostics is an exam in math and reading that'll sort of tell us where they are so that we can provide support, because we know even if they did well on the exams in the spring, we still want to make sure if there's any learning loss or any gaps that we can fill those for them. Whether they have to have the additional hours or not, we want to make sure our teachers are providing that support as we keep them at grade level preparing for the spring and whatever exams await them there. But we will, the schools will be reaching out throughout the month of August, anywhere from early August through the very end of August, once we have those beginning of the year exams done for those who did not test in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you everyone for your patience. I'm getting to everybody. I see a lot of hands up, so I'm gonna keep us moving along here. Lucila Mendizabal.
Hello. Let me turn my camera for you. Okay. I have 2 questions. One, and the CDC says last week the people that those eligible for vaccine needs to wear a mask. Why me elementary school no wear a mask? And say the children need 3 feet apart inside the buildings. You guys do it, or you thinking you can do it? That's one my question.
So to answer your first question on the masks, unfortunately, we have to follow the state of Texas's mandate. So regardless of what the CDC has said, the state of Texas, Governor Abbott has said that public entities like a school district cannot mandate mask wearing. So unfortunately, we have to follow that. We cannot ask anyone to wear a mask, but as Ms. Bejarano pointed out, if somebody wants to wear a mask, they are welcome to do so. We will not prevent that anyone, staff or student, from wearing a mask. We cannot enforce that. We cannot ask somebody to wear a mask. On your second question, our desks, under normal circumstances, our classrooms are set up, desks are about 3 feet apart. So that was something MTA has. So we're already about, in most cases, 3 feet apart already. They're not usually closer than that. Maybe the little ones with the round tables, but the desks are about 3 feet apart. Is that accurate, Dr. G?
For the most part, as much as we can, especially at the elementary where our class sizes tend to cap at 22. And we have, over the COVID, when we were returning students in the spring, we asked teachers to remove a lot of excess furniture or anything that would keep us from being able to spread out. And so hopefully we've been able to let teachers know they can live without a lot of that, and we can continue to be able to space. Where it gets a little bit more challenging is in the secondary campuses, where we do have class sizes that can go up into the 30s. So sometimes those might be a little bit closer, but they're always an aisle walking distance. Just fire codes require that we have easy access to move about a room and to be able to enter and exit without being too close proximity.
Excuse me, I can have another question as faster. My student is AB honor roll. He no made the SR test. He need to take the additional hours.
Did he take the STAR test, ma'am?
No.
Then I believe the answer is yes.
Well, and what will happen, ma'am, if he's, a very strong student, he will take, at the end of August, the state is releasing a beginning of the year assessment that looks like the STAR, and he'll take the exams that he didn't take last year. And if he does well, and he passes those, he will not need to do the additional hours. If he struggles on any of them, the additional hours will be provided for him. But he will take if he didn't test in the spring, anyone who didn't test in the spring will test at the end of August. And then we'll know whether they need to be provided the hours, need that additional assistance, or that they're right where they need to be. And we'll continue moving them forward.
Okay, thank you so much.
Next would be Anthony Barrera. Mr. Barrera, I don't see you connected to audio though. If you'd like to email me the question, I don't see that you're connected to audio. So I'm going to move on to Pierce.
Hi, I just had 2 questions. And came in late, so I don't know if this has been asked or not. So I understand the EPISD went into an all year round school calendar, and I wanted to know, was that going to still stay, or is that going to, now that things are changing, are you guys going to revert back to the old schedule?
For the 21-22 school year, we do have the year round. We have the intersessions in fall and spring, and then we still have a fall break that follows that intersession week in October, and we have the spring break. This next year for 22, our last day, I believe, is June 5th. So we are getting out a little bit earlier, but of course we're starting earlier. We're starting August 2nd. We are in the process of looking at developing the calendar for 22-23. And I asked the committee to do one that is a year round, similar to what this year will look like, and then one that goes back to being more traditional, just to give our interim superintendent, our school board, and our community an opportunity to give us input on to whether they feel that the year round is beneficial, or if the more traditional better fits the needs of our students and our families. So right now we're going to look at developing both, but for this school year, yes, we still have, we start August 2nd. Our kiddos will be back with us, and they'll be with us all the way through June 5th. But we do have those intersessions. We do have a fall break week and a spring break week.
Okay, because I understand that you guys did that during the pandemic to help during the numbers in case we had to go in lockdown. So my second question is, now that we have those intersessions, does EPISD have a fall backup plan in case numbers were to rise again, and if we have to go down as a lockdown? I'm hoping it doesn't, but is foreseen the inevitable. Will you guys do virtual again if we do a lockdown? Would like basically, since we kind of have an idea of what we dealt with before, are we going to have a backup plan just in case if we do go on another lockdown?
A lot of that would be followed with what the state allows us to do. At this point, the state's not giving us any options for virtual, and they haven't given us, unless Ms. Bejarano can give us any insight in terms of if they anticipate, as has been mentioned by some of the other people that have spoke this afternoon. We do know there's variants out there. We do know that there's still cases that are happening even now. But at this point, all we've been given the go-ahead is to plan as usual. And then if something should, I'm sure then we would respond the same way we did back in March of 2020. And the state would give us the guidance at that time.
Okay. I'm sorry. And another question just popped up in my head. Because I know like right now everybody's getting vaccinated. I know the big question is for the little ones. And I know the little ones, it's taking time once we get those research done. But my question is, I know like I know your district, like for my kids' school, they say we need to have their vax shots up to date and have them as show proof to go back to school. Once it's eligible for all elementary, is that something that's going to be required, part of the COVID, list amongst with like the flu and all the other ones? Are those going to be a requirement to be in the school? I'm not sure if I'm answering it correctly, asking it correctly.
No, you're good. So from what I understand, the traditional immunizations will continue, and HPV, flu, COVID will always be an optional vaccine. So I heard no plans of them making it a requirement.
Okay, then. All right. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Alvarado.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. First and foremost, thank you all for having this meeting for us parents. I think it's really good information necessary for all of us that are interested. So thank you for that. My question is for House Bill 4545. Is it an absolute requirement, or can we opt out for these mandatory, I know that contradicts itself, but the 30 hours of tutoring?
Yes, they haven't. What they've alluded to is that they're going to give us certain templates from TEA. There's a possibility of waiving even just the small, like you'd be comfortable with your child being in a group of 12, 15, 20. But also if they don't provide a waiver or a decline, I guess, of the additional services, we'll have one generated as a district that will be able to provide for parents who may just say, I don't want the hours, I've got this covered, or even may say I'm not comfortable having them tested at this time. So we will need to have parents who decline the hours and the supplemental accelerated learning opportunities. We'll need to have it in writing because this is a House bill mandate from the state. We will need to be able to document the services that we provide, and if we don't provide services, why that was, so that we're actually currently working on a form, and it would be merely for the parent to be able to fill that out and provide and file it with the campus, so that we'll have that on file if we're ever asked why we didn't provide services to these certain groups of students. We would have to have that from the parent, but we will have that as an option for any parent wishing to decline the opportunities.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, real quickly, I have opened up the chat. If it's easier for more convenient for you to drop your question in there, you're welcome to, but I'm going to we're nearing our hour, but I'm going to stay on. We'll stay on as long as y'all want to with the questions. I'm going to move on to Steve.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the meeting. I just got a quick question for the new ones, the little children that are like 4 or 5 getting ready to start their first school year. What's the guidance in regards for handling these children academically wise, since this is their first go around for school? My daughter will be 5 November 11th. And I know the rule for the state of Texas that you have to be 5 before school starts, which was in September. Is there some kind of conflict with that law for the state of Texas, with the schools being open for August now? Yes, hello?
Can any of our speakers speak to that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was also answering in the chat at the same time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, before they start the school year, I know school's starting early, but I know they said they have to be 5 because my daughter would be going to kindergarten, but I'm thinking she would be going to pre-K. And I was trying to figure out what's the guidance in regards to how you guys are handling academically wise in regards for the letdown that happened in 2020 and 2021 with their progress in school.
Well, again, entering into kindergarten, I believe it is by September 1st, the birthdays, they have to have that birthday before that point, and that does determine whether they'd be the pre-K 4 or the kindergarten. As I mentioned, we do have diagnostics that we will be providing to every student upon entering, especially for our younger students who are just entering out. The diagnostics are more just the readiness of reading readiness, sort of trying to gauge where they are so that we can be very strategic in the supports that we provide all of our students. Our pre-K 3s and 4s and our kindergarten teachers are experts at early childhood in terms of making sure that we can accelerate and get that reading readiness. That's one of the key components for that age group, is having them reading ready and then reading by the time that they're entering into that first grade. So there are assessments that our early childhood teachers do provide in order to be able to provide that personal pathway for our little ones.
Absolutely, and thank you. So because I was like, let's get her ready for kindergarten, but obviously she's not going to be able to make it because of her age, because she'll be 5 in November. But okay, so there's going to be assessments, and she'll have to take a test so they can gauge her level and where she's at.
Right. So that again, there's a certain element that always will be sort of an overlay of the skills necessary. But if she comes in and she's already very reading ready, they want to be able to meet a student where they come in with us, whether it's accelerated or we want to strengthen their skill set. So she'll definitely have assessments so that they'll be able to personalize her experience for her.
Thank you again. I look forward to it. Hopefully the best for this new school year for everyone.
Oh, thank you. We look forward to having them back with us. We've missed them.
Absolutely.
On to Courtney.
Hi, sorry, I just had a quick question just to verify with the STAR testing and the additional hours. So like my daughter, she failed the science pretty bad, but she did great at the reading. So with the hours, would she only be working on the science and a little bit of math where she struggled, or would she have to work on all 3?
What we'll do is, and again, it's based on whether they passed, considered, meeting its approaches meets masters. So if they were at approaches, that's considered passing. And so the hours would not be assigned for that. If there was one that they fell below that approaches, the hours would be activated for that. So like you said, struggled a little bit, I think you said in science, then science would be the area that we would focus on. And the schools will be able to tell you which areas, and we'll have letters that'll go out that'll actually indicate that. Our priority is probably math and reading, but if it's only science, then we will start the science hours for them in the fall. But if we have students who need all 4, we're going to start with the math and reading as being the first areas, followed by science and social studies. But if that's only areas they need is social studies or the science, that's what we'll focus on in the fall for them. And that's what their first intercession would be focused on as well.
Okay, just wanted to double check since on the PowerPoint, it only had math and reading. So I wasn't sure if she would have to do all 3, 4. Yeah,
I know. And initially, when you read the House bill, I don't go read the House bill. I mean, you could if you want to, but it really stresses more the math and the reading. And so in the webinars we've had with TEA, we've asked for clarification on science and social studies because it seemed like an afterthought, but they did clarify for us. We will need to provide hours for any student who didn't pass a STAR science or a STAR social studies. Our best case scenarios that they did well in all, but if they have 1 or more, then we'll prioritize and take 1 at a time and get them through this school year.
All right, fantastic. Thank you all. And
thank you.
As it's been mentioned too, thank y'all for having this.
No, thank you all for being here.
We are at the hour again. We're going to stay on and get to all the questions that everybody might have. But again, you have to leave. We understand some of you joining us for lunch. Thank you so much for being with us today. We have another session at 5:30. It's the same presentation. It's just in case if you had another question, think of something else. If you know of anybody who wasn't able to make it to this current session, they can certainly join us at 5:30. Again, we're going to stay on to keep answering questions, but I understand some of you might need to leave. My email, you're welcome to put a question. If we didn't get to it, please include your email in the chat, and I'll be sure that we get an answer to you. So with that, I'm going to move on to Tanya Smith.
Hi, it's Tanea Smith, actually. Okay, so my question is, well, I know that you're not like requiring students to wear masks, you're wiping down high risk areas and stuff, but will there still be the shields up, or is that not a requirement anymore either?
That is not a requirement. However, if teachers have the space and are allowed to use them, absolutely they can. If you want to request that from a student's teacher and they have the ability to do that, absolutely you can do that.
Oh, it's not.
Okay. Also, will you be like requiring the students, because I have a first grader, requiring the students to wash their hands more often or use hand sanitizer more often? Because
I can tell you from 25 years of being a school nurse that that's all we do, COVID or not. So you have my guarantee that nurses are still teaching classes on hand washing. We're still using the hand sanitizer. It's readily available. You're welcome to send a small bottle with your student. Some like to clip it on their belt. That's more than fine to have that. At home, if you can practice with them, that's even better. Hand washing, sanitizing, trying to keep a little distance. That's helpful too. But absolutely, the nurses will be hitting the sanitation, hand washing, watching for illness very closely.
Okay.
Will kids be in close proximity during the school hours at that time?
I think I missed the first part of that. My apologies.
Will kids have proper safety precautions established? Because our daughter is very outgoing, so she likes to touch, and so I was just trying to find out how is the precautionary like standard for younger kids is going to be for pre-K and first grade.
We emphasize a lot because we have huggers and kissers and of their lunch and that kind of thing. So we emphasize the personal space, and the teachers will be doing that, and nurses as well, that everybody needs to have a little bit of a bubble around them for comfort. So the little ones we try to explain, even our high schoolers, we're going to try to explain that they need some space in between them. So we're definitely going to do, our darndest to make sure they give some space to each other.
Okay. Okay.
Also, in the event that our daughter does catch COVID, how long would like the quarantine be, and would it be so 10 days? Okay, so would it be counted as an absence, or would it be like more so like a nurse's 6 days?
So we're definitely working with Cheryl Felder, who's in charge of pupil services, to ask how we can help the students if they're in quarantine. That's the last thing we want to do. So we're going to do some contact tracing. We're going to be vigilant on signs and symptoms. We're absolutely going to follow Dr. Ocaranza's keys as far as how we contact trace and who has the 10-day quarantine. So all that will be revealed a little bit later as soon as Pupil Services, Dr. Gonzalez, speak about how to do those absences. It's a last effort though to quarantine them. We're going to try to do everything we can.
Okay. I'm sorry, we have a bunch of questions. I don't know how to word it, but so like, go ahead, you can go first.
Okay, so with recess and extracurricular activities within the kids grades, how is the disinfecting going to actually work? Because I know some kids may be on recess or have lunch at a certain time. Are they disinfecting it throughout the day, or is it once a day? Because I seen in one of the things the the water station will be disinfected once. So, you know, it could be once in the morning, once in the afternoon, you know, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, let me rephrase that if that came out incorrectly. Those high touch points are done several times a day. So water knobs, the equipment is done in between. So once one PE class ends, they disinfect the equipment, they wait for the next class. So we've kind of got those protocols down pat because we've been doing it while kids have been in school this last year. All the PE teachers are aware of that. So anything that cannot be sanitized in that fashion goes in a bag. It's tied up. It waits for the next day as the virus can't be communicated to each other over a distance. So anything that couldn't be washed, we're going to do that with it.
Last question, sorry. So I know in the past, well, my elementary school, they would come home with homework. Is she going to come home with paper homework, or is everything still going to be through Class Dojo or through Schoology
or yeah, Schoology, Class Dojo, Galaxy, Education Galaxy.
Yeah.
A lot of it, it's what we have is a blended learning approach. I'm trying to answer in the chat at the same time. We still have a one-to-one device district for our students, but the device does not replace the teacher, but it does help us facilitate a lot of the learning in terms of, you know, at the upper levels, being able to take notes, being able to access information, doing research. It's very much sort of like even like flex books, that there's a lot of our textbooks are now on their ebooks, electronics. And so it could be that some of the homework might be, you know, handed in, you know, through Schoology. Schoology is still very much our learning management system at all levels. You know, we've made a lot of gains on our teachers and our students becoming far more comfortable using a lot of this technology. So we'll continue to utilize it as part of that blended approach. There's still that one-on-one, that interaction. There's still paper and pencil, but even our testing, the state testing is all online now. And so our students do need to be comfortable being able to interact with their computers, because that is the way the state is going 100% on all assessments, even AP exams, things at the upper levels are all online now. And so we want our kids to be comfortable in that. It doesn't replace the teacher, it doesn't replace those discussions and those hands-on activities, but it's certainly an important part of that blended learning approach. So things like, yes, Schoology, your Class Dojo, having those communications with your teachers, being able to hand things in electronically, those will continue, because those are skills that we're finding, you know, are required outside of the school environment. So we want our kids to be prepared.
Okay. Well, my worry is my husband is actually high risk. He's asthmatic and upon other things, but our major worry is that she's gonna have homework assignments that are paper, as they were when she was virtual, and they're going to be touching it. She's going to be bringing it back. He's going to be helping her with her homework and touching it as well. And he'd get COVID and possibly die.
Yeah, I got bronchitis over this COVID time frame, and it was horrible. So I would relatively want to stay away from it.
And that it would be something that I would coordinate directly with your campus. And I don't know if your student has, if elementary has that one teacher to coordinate that with, and just make that request. Because there is no reason we can't pretty much do everything electronically. Even any kind of handout can be scanned and produced through the computer. And so I would just make that, you know, coordinating with the campus and give us that information. I can help facilitate that with your principal to make sure that that's an awareness for that teacher that your child has, and that the campus is able to support you with that.
Okay. When do we receive like the teacher like name on the schedules? Is it on the first day?
Actually, what we're encouraging is sort of that old school of being able to have those open houses the week that our teachers come back, which is the week of the 26th. I'm running out of dates, but it's that final week of July, having those open houses. But you should have that information prior to that. For those who are looking for them online, we roll over is what we do. When one school year ends, another one opens up, and that rollover will be happening this weekend. And so those of you who are checking on Parent Portal, you should start seeing those schedules. Also, just checking on your campus website or reaching out to the campus to find out when they'll post that or when they're going to have that open house. So you'll have a chance to come visit the classroom, meet the teacher. Teachers are back on duty that final week of July. So a lot of those will be happening that week.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Stay safe.
To Jay Parsa, you've been waiting patiently.
Hello, I have two questions. I have an 11th grader who passed his his EOCs last year, and his grades are fine. And I think you've mentioned this, but I just want to clarify, will he still be doing those extra assessments in August, or will he not need to take those since he's okay and with his grades?
And especially as a senior, I believe he's a senior now?
A junior, he'll be a junior. He'll be a junior.
No, he will not be needing to take that. What he will be doing is, as a junior, he's probably in US history. And so he will have an EOC at the end of the school year, but they'll be preparing for that throughout the school year. He will not be required to do any additional hours. If he passed his EOCs, he's good.
He's good. Okay, great. And the other question, I have a kindergartner as well, going into kindergarten. And, these kids have been away from each other for a whole year and a half. I'm expecting a lot of colds, like URI symptoms, cough, runny nose. That's just usual in kindergarten anyway, when they get around each other. Are we going to have to, and normally kids go to school with that. I mean, we know that's just how it is. So are people going to have to get COVID assessments, testing? Is that going to be required if you have a runny nose, if you had any symptoms that overlap with COVID, or is that up to the parent, or how's that going to be taken care of as far as just the usual stuff that kids pass around at school?
It's definitely a challenging time anytime the kids are together, but during COVID, it's brought up these issues. You hit it on the head. It's going to be up to the nurse's discretion. There's an RN in every campus. If she sees a triad of symptoms that might be causing concern, if she sees a temperature, maybe no temperature, but the kid's not doing well, based on some of what the teacher's input is, they're going to be sending them home. And I just want to thank you all in advance for understanding that nurses are caught in that dilemma. We do not know if it's COVID or not. They could have COVID, do a test, it comes back negative, 2 days later, it's positive, or vice versa. It could be a false negative. So we're just going to do our very best with every kiddo. If they're not feeling well, the best thing to do is keep them home. If symptoms resolve and they're good to go the next day, feel free to send them in. But nurses will be trying to keep everybody healthy and safe. So that's just going to be something we need to work with the parents on, to let them know they have some of these symptoms. Testing is never mandated. It might cause a 10-day quarantine if we need to see if the symptoms are still there after 5 or 7 days. We might ask you to see your pediatrician, doctor, to make sure we're not dealing with COVID. But we're absolutely here to help and support the kiddos in learning. But they may need to go home. This year it'll be dicey to know whether it's COVID, whether it's RSV, whether we have another infection coming in. So we're just asking patience on that.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I know that, the usual colds, they can last for 10 days, and that's really normal. So, and people often are in school with a little runny nose or a little cough, and that's, that's acceptable and normal in the old days. So I was just wondering, so the nurses will be monitoring that, and if they ask you to stay home, you stay home. That's all there is. Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, no, but I appreciate the question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Haji, you're very patient. You're next.
Yes, good afternoon to everybody. My first time after the online schooling, which was devastating to everybody. I just need to ask, I heard and I've been monitoring the website and everything about reopening the plan. To me, if the school does not reopen on August the 2nd, to me, it's kind of like end of life. Like I've been since January until the summer started, until today, 24 hours up. I'm not getting sleep. I have no income to support the family and nothing because I'm watching my little kid. See him right there behind me for almost 9 months now. So it's just devastating results because of COVID. I know it's nobody's fault. and the school doing whatever it takes, wherever they can to reopen the schools. I just need to know, are they gonna open on August the 2nd? We are all fully vaccinated.
Yes, sir. We are fully opening back up. All of our schools will be open on August 2nd to all students 100%. And that's, I think, where a lot of it is the state mandate. And we're just trying to find that best way to be open safely so that people do feel comfortable with their children coming back to us, and our staff is comfortable with returning as well. But you're correct. I mean, vaccinations are available for ages 12 and up, but a lot of our kids, you know, the elementaries, that tends to be where I think a lot of our concerns today are coming from is just our younger kids. The vaccinations are not available to them, but we are open to everyone to return 100%, all activities. And we just want to do it as safely as possible. We want people to have confidence in what we're doing and that we're taking care of everyone, from our students to our staff to our community members. But we'll be open, doors open, kids back in August 2nd.
Thank God, because like I said, nobody can even imagine what kind of devastating it was to us, like killing us. And the kids, especially the kids with the special needs, like they don't understand what's going on. No matter how you explain to them, it's a virus, you can go, you get sick. No, like they get even angry, sometimes get aggressive because they don't understand what's going on. And that's the main concern. So I said, if they're not gonna open again August the 2nd, it's gonna be like gonna end of life to us. You can imagine how 3 disabled people at the house, I'm the only one who's caring for everybody there. I can't work, I can't make income, 3 social security checks, and that's all. So thank God, and appreciate the great news that they're gonna reopen and everything. I appreciate it. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Erica Reina, thank you for being so patient.
Yes, I have 2 questions. One is with the vaccinations. Like my daughter's doctor, they do the call in first, and then they schedule an appointment for the office to get their shots. So like I have my 4-year-old who needs her shots for pre-K. Is that going to be an issue? And my second question is for the testing that you're gonna have done at the end of August. My daughter has an IEP and a 504. Is there going to be someone to help her read, because she has trouble with reading, but she excels in everything else? So I was wondering, is there going to be someone there to help her with that testing?
I can answer the first part about the vaccinations. Definitely reach out to your school nurse. They're on duty starting tomorrow. However, it is state law that they have all their vaccinations before attending, but a pre-K is under a child care rule. So just kind of keep that in mind. They don't have to have their 4-year-old shots until they're in kindergarten, if that helps at all. You can definitely email me a shot record, and I don't mind taking a look at it, Erica.
Okay.
And was there an additional? I know that was a 2-part question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my daughter, I didn't take the STAR test last year, but you said that they were going to take the test in August, and my daughter has a IEP and a 504, and she has trouble reading, because of her issues that she has. So I was wondering, is there going to be someone to be able to help her read the questions?
How old is she?
She is 4. No, she's not. She is 9. Sorry,
9.
that's my
So
other daughter.
she's like a 4th grade.
Yes, she's to be a 4th grader.
Any modification or support that she would have been offered on the STAR in the spring, she'll be offered for this BOY.
Well,
So
that's the issue we're having, because when we had moved at the beginning of last year from Georgia, and she was put on IEP. She had a 504, but since the virtual schooling went into effect, she wasn't getting the help she needed, like virtually. So me and her teacher just worked with her, and she did really well. But I was wondering, now that she started school again, and will all that be back into effect?
right,
Like
yes.
100%?
Yes, as she returns face-to-face, any additional supports that were provided. And I would, if it was something that wasn't already discussed in the IEP for any kind of testing supports, whether it was someone reading them to her, you know, that kind of thing, that you visit that with your campus. You can even call an ARD to ensure that when she does take that assessment, that she gets the support she would have had if it was the true STAR test. That it'll mimic exactly any kind of supports or accommodations that she'll have it in August when she takes that beginning of the year.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Good luck to her.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, thank you, everyone. I believe we've gone through all our questions. As I've mentioned in the chat, we will create an FAQ. So both the full plan that we talked about today and some other documents, including FAQ, will be posted on our website. So look for the reopening section. We'll have that updated soon. And we'll have a lot of, we'll have a lot of additional information and of course address some of the questions. And then if you have any other questions or any questions in general, you can always reach out to us on our website. Look for the contact us button on our homepage, click on that and it sends us a question directly. You can pick it by topic. And it'll come right to us. So you're always welcome to do that. And if there are, with that, I'm going to say thank you so much. We've gone about a half hour over our time, but thank you so much for joining us today. Again, as I mentioned, we have another session at 5:30. You're welcome to join. If you know anybody who you think would benefit or wasn't able to join us, please share the information and we're happy to assist you with anything else. So thank you so much everyone for joining us today. And again, if you'd like to join us again, 5:30, if not online, we're welcome to chat with you. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you.